Hey everyone, Andrea Caprio here, and I am with my daughter today, who just arrived from London. Actually, she was in France before, but she arrived today and she's joining me for my Facebook Live. Hi, Jess.
Hi. Hi,
So,
everyone. Happy to be here.
so glad. So we thought actually I was preparing this video today, and I tried of thinking coming up with something really interesting. I have some idea it will happen next week, and we spoke together and we said let's do that together. It's fun, I guess. So let us know what you think. By the way, say hi. Maybe you have some questions for Jess. You might be a little bit bored with me, so she's here. But what I want to do today is Jess is vegan, sometimes a little bit vegetarian as well. Sometimes it's for her own well-being, she decides. And I want to ask her a couple of questions around nowadays. A lot of people choose to become vegan or vegetarian for health reasons, for various other reasons. So I want her expertise in here, why she became a vegan vegetarian, and also of course to find out a little bit how she goes about it, so it helps you in the end because she's really the expert. I eat a lot of vegetarian and vegan cuisine because I feel it, it suits me. But I have fish, and I have also sometimes, in meanwhile, a little bit of meat because I feel for my body that's the right thing. And like with everything, I believe really everybody has to choose because we all are different. So Jess, maybe let's start. So what made you become initially, I know you started as a vegetarian and then you became vegan and maybe back and forth, but what made you initially to become that way?
Vegetarian.
Yeah.
The kind of initial idea behind me becoming vegetarian was really an animal rights issue, and that's why it escalated to then becoming vegan as well. Because I thought not killing animals is not enough. I'm advocating for treating them with respect. And so things like milk and eggs, well, you're doing battery farming for that, and that's not respecting animals. So that was a personal choice and my personal beliefs. Something that then kind of made that stronger as well is the environmental impact that the meat industry has. Specifically battery farming, the amount of water they consume and the energy that it takes to produce meat is essentially really bad. And so being vegetarian or vegan, if done properly, can be much better for the environment. And it is actually also cheaper, especially when I was a student in London. Not buying meat saved me a lot of money, and I was able to then go out and do other things with it. And yeah, with time, I also just learned how to cook essentially things that are vegan and vegetarian. And seeing as I never learned how to cook meat, well, just kind of stuck, I guess.
Yeah. And you do a great job at it. Now, Jessica became vegetarian initially. She was 12 years old, right?
Yeah, 13.
13, 12 years,
Yeah.
13 years old. I was supporting her all the time.
Yeah.
And that's one thing maybe, which from my side as a mother, I want to give out. We have, of course, young people deciding to become vegan vegetarian, or people, our partners or so. And for me, I wanted to support her, but I also didn't want to make my life more difficult because after all, I was working, I'm busy and all that, and I had a whole other family who was not going the vegan
Yeah,
vegetarian
just the
side.
only one.
So, and they wanted to continue eating meat and or fish or whatever it was. So I really wanted to do it. So I really managed to do it in the easy way. So I was usually doing dishes that would accommodate a vegan or vegetarian, and at the same time a meat eater or omnivore or whatever you want to call it. So I would start off a dish, for example, with the basics, obviously the vegetarian things, and then I would keep part of it for her and then add meat or fish for the others. So it was really an easy thing. But I want to know from you now. I mean, you live your own life. She lives in London. She's been living abroad for many years, so doing her own decision, living her own life. And I know you're working and you're super busy. And how do you maneuver it? Because as a vegan vegetarian, it's of course sometimes a little bit
Yeah.
difficult. You're invited somewhere, or you're going out, or you have to cook at home. So how are you doing that with being busy and going out, that you follow a vegan or vegetarian lifestyle?
So it's been not too complex for me in the sense that being vegan vegetarian, I was living in London and Berlin, which are two very friendly vegetarian and more recently vegan friendly places. So being able to source ingredients, I mean, in Berlin, there was a vegan supermarket near me, but you'd go to any organic store, or even a general supermarket, that have a full aisle of vegan options. So it was quite easy to buy things that were affordable, that were good quality. And it's a question of also doing some research, trying to find out what kind of how to get firstly all the nutrients that you need, because that's really important. A lot of people, that's one of the first things they do to ensure that you're getting all the right proteins, calcium, etc., that you don't, that you normally would get from meat or milk. And then also finding out where to get all this food. So I went into various supermarkets to be able to find kind of the right places. There are a few websites that I'm pretty sure you can add in the links that help for finding the right restaurants that are vegan and vegetarian friendly. And what else have I done? Yeah, it's been a lot of trial and error as well. Like the switch from vegetarian to vegan was a bit more of a challenging one, because I was always a vegetarian when I cooked. So I learned how to cook vegetarian. That was just what I did. So switching to vegan, it was a question of understanding where all the vegetarian food was and how I could substitute that for something vegan that still kept all the kind of proteins and things, but tasted good. And that's been a lot of trial and error. There's been a lot of searching online for recipes, and I have various cookbooks. It really is one of those, you just do things and hope it tastes good. And at some point you get to the point where you kind of know what does and doesn't, and you kind of try from there, I guess.
Yeah, I love that. And I can tell you out of experience, Jessica cooks really, really well, and I love her dishes. Now, I hear that often, and I think the stigma is still unfortunately around, is, vegan is boring, and it's anything but boring. I mean, I actually, when I visited Jess in London, we went to 2 vegan places, and it was so good. I mean, it's like, really, you cannot imagine how tasteful the dishes are, and plenty of colors and origins and all that. So it's really amazing, right?
I think part of it is due to the fact that because you don't necessarily have meat, that people often, taste like the meat part. A lot of people who cook vegan, vegetarian food tend to add a lot more flavor to the food in order to, try to compensate for that fact. And so you end up with dishes that are kind of have loads of really nice spices and herbs in it, and a lot of fresh food as well. And so it just kind of brings it out that much more. And it's also a question of, it's like any food really. I mean, you can go to a restaurant where they're serving steak and the steak tastes awful, and you can go to a restaurant where they serve nice steak. It's really about finding a chef who knows what they're doing.
True.
It's really basic, honestly. Like any cuisine really, there are right ways of doing it and wrong ways. And
I agree. And there are nowadays also so many really nice places where you can have fast food, vegan fast food. There's a new chain coming up. And by the way, I share it just now, is here in the...
That's the one.
Happy Cow. Happy Cow, absolutely. Happy Cow is a really great website, which is worldwide, I think, right?
Yeah, it exists in London and Berlin.
And
so
you find vegan or vegetarian options, or full vegan vegetarian restaurants, supermarkets. I think,
yeah, they do supermarkets as well, which is really great.
But they also have still, meat places, or like normal restaurants, Omni, where they just have options. Okay, and usually it's a bit more healthy food. I love that app, and it's really very resourceful. So you might want to try that one out, right? To find the right place, because a lot of people struggle to find restaurants, especially when they travel around
and you don't know it.
Just use that.
And it's also quite good because you can type in the type of cuisine that you want as well. If you want to go out for Italian or for Thai food, you can put in the filter of what kind of cuisine you're looking for. So you make sure that it's something that, cuisine you're interested in, and that it has the right options for you. Yeah. And there's a rating system, like, your TripAdvisor.
Of course, yeah. Okay, cool. So how do you make, what is your favorite, probably let me ask you that. What is your favorite dish, vegetarian or vegan dish you really love doing, and to make it tasty? Or how would you maybe convince a meat eater that really vegan is the thing?
So there are the sweet dishes and the salty dishes. In terms of salty, I make a really good vegan lasagna, which is one of the easiest ones to convert a meat eater because they realize how much it tastes very, very similar if you have bolognese or if you don't. Mincemeat, sorry. So that's kind of one of the ones that I like to use for people who are quite big meat eaters. The one that I like more on a personal level is a tagine with sweet potatoes, chickpeas, aubergines, sometimes a bit of spinach. And it's kind of Northern African vibes of different spices like cumin, coriander, tahini, you kind of put in there. And you can really put whichever vegetables you want. I just stick to the classic, really, add a bit of couscous on the side. It's really tasteful. It's quite simple to make and it's amazing filling, nutritious. So it's one of those that I love doing. And we had a big family lunch over the summer where we invited lots of friends and family. And it's one of those dishes that's quite easy to make for a large amount of people, and everyone loved it. So it's always a successful dish.
Great. I can't wait.
In terms of sweet stuff, I love baking. I've been doing this since I was a kid, and my mother has had everything that I've ever made. And it was a challenge at the beginning to go from vegetarian to vegan, being able to replace things. So there are a lot of sites online that give you straight up vegan recipes, which are really great. I mostly just Google vegan banana bread and then get a result. But a lot of the experimentation that I've been doing recently has been replacing the non-vegan parts. So eggs is the most difficult to replace. I know one of them is chickpea water.
Okay, so I wanted to know, how do you do that? So chickpea water, yes.
I mean,
albufera, it's called, I think, something like that. Yeah.
I'm lazy and I just go buy egg replacement in the supermarket. Okay. But a lot of my friends who actually take the time to do it properly do chickpea water. I think you know how to do this.
I use flax seeds mostly. So you have what's called flax egg. Sorry, and you have 1 spoon of flaxseed with water and you mix it, and that replaces as well. And that's also really easy thing to do. And healthy additionally. Yeah, absolutely right. You get the omega-3, which by the way is important, which is usually missing in the vegan cuisine. Same with, by the way, while we are at it, vitamin B12 is also super important, right? So how do you replace those?
The B12 or the
both? No, so I put a gun at Jess because as a mother, obviously, I am worried that, she gets all the nutrients.
So, I mean, I end up taking supplements, not just from the fact that I'm vegan, because I find a lot of people who are omni also take supplements.
Right.
This also due to the fact that a lot of the food that we eat is processed and has lost a lot of the nutrients by the time it arrives on our plates. And this is one thing where cooking vegan does, or vegetarian more, really does give you more of an opportunity to eat raw foods, because a lot of it will be vegetables. Of course, you can add tofu and this and that, but a lot of it is vegetables where you're getting a lot of nutrients, and beans, lentils, things like that, where you get your proteins from. And so if you do a little bit of research in advance, you're actually able to, I wouldn't say you don't need supplements, because I think we're all not necessarily consuming everything we need anyway. So I take some because I know that, I lack some things, but it's totally doable. You just, again, it's research. It really is.
Yeah, it is. And in the end, from my perspective as a nutrition coach is, of course, I believe it's important. And Jess, you're absolutely right. What lands on our plate very often actually doesn't have the nutrients it's having when it gets farmed, right? That's why sometimes I say it's actually better to have frozen fruit and vegetable instead of fresh, because sometimes they are actually having more nutrients coming onto your plate. I think the danger with vegan or vegetarian very often is that the missing meat is replaced by too much starch.
Yeah.
Right? The pasta, the pizza, and so on. And for me, that's probably the one part where I always say, when you start, is that be a little bit careful that you're really having a balanced meal here, and you include enough vegetables, in fact, because in the end, a lot of vegan vegetarians are not eating enough vegetables, and they're usually missing out on the protein part. And there's so many healthy proteins. So perhaps you can tell us, what are the proteins you like using? and maybe some tips if somebody starts off as a vegan or a vegetarian. What would you tell them to do or to be careful with about?
I think one of the big flags is it's really easy to just put tofu in everything. And whilst tofu does have that protein value, and it is, because it's not too tasteful, it's quite easy to put into any dish, and I do use it sometimes. What it does have, though, is a lot of hormones in there. That's fun fact that I learned: the soybeans that they used to make tofu used to be a contraceptive that they gave to women.
Look at that.
The other day.
Absolutely. And that's, you see, absolutely, you're fully right. And I always say that, be very careful. It brings up your estrogens level considerably. Yeah. So it might lead to other issues.
I think you were saying that if you have very fermented tofu like tempeh, then it's fine.
So if tofu, you're absolutely right. You learned from somebody well. Huh? So if you
She's useful.
If absolutely, if you have tofu, it's good. It's from time to time. But if you have definitely some hormonal issues, you might want to be careful, because usually it increases estrogen, and usually many women have too much estrogen actually, so you don't want to further increase. But what you try is to have it fermented. That makes it easier. And when you're in some countries, like for example the USA, tofu or soybeans rather are genetically modified very often, and that's even more the danger as well. So you want at least to make sure your tofu, your soybeans or whatever, they are organic and they're fermented
and come from fair trade, because something as well when you're vegan that you do have to pay a little bit attention to is the environmental repercussions. Things like soy are destroying the Amazon.
Absolutely right. Yes.
Although most of it is actually being used for meat farming. Side note. And this is where the milks that I use to replace, for example, as much as I love almond milk is also really not that great for the environment. So I tend to go more towards oat milk. Because oat milk is also, for those who like lattes, it's much easier to make into kind of a latte type thing.
Feels better.
So it's great for that. And so in terms of milks, that's the thing, going more for oat milk than the others for my environmental reasons. So I stick to chickpeas because I just love chickpeas and I find them really easy to add into anything.
As a source for protein.
Yes, for protein. I love that, but then if you look at your kind of butter beans and beans like that, lentils as well. Lentils are so easy to make. You just put them in the water and they do also go with pretty much anything as a dish, because you can spice them and put in whatever herbs you want, so it's adapted. You can use lentils to do a bolognese. You can use lentils to do a dal. You can put it in any kind of dish and it works, and I quite like that about lentils as well. You kind of do your research, and there are quite a few websites that you can find where or their Instagram pages as well. There's one that's Accidentally Vegan. I think it's UK based, but it's essentially shows items that aren't necessarily labeled as vegan in supermarkets, but if you look at the ingredients, it is actually vegan. They're just not allowed to have the label because it's done in a factory where there is possible cross-contamination. But things like Oreos are completely vegan. For those in the UK, tea cakes, what else are there? Hobnobs, they're all actually vegan, but
with lots of sugar.
But lots of sugar. If you're like me and you love biscuits, those are there. But there are also a lot of non-sugar ones.
That's perhaps the one thing what I personally think, that very often whenever you have vegan or gluten-free as well, a lot of the manufacturers replace it with loads of sugar.
Yes.
Which in my opinion is the worst thing. we have discussions around these things. So but so be careful with this one, I would say, because sometimes you end up, so yes, doing your own food obviously is the best one. And by the way, one of those samples of doing your own healthy cooking is I added there a smoothie builder, so the link is in the description, and that's really a great way for breakfast, to include some healthy vegetable. There's some fruits in, and you have protein powder. You can use pea protein powder. So that's, fully vegan and gives you really a rounded off, and you love smoothies. And so I will do that when she's here and get lots of healthy stuff into. Additionally, great. That sounds so.
I think is it on your website, the cookie recipe that I made?
Yes, I think so. Yes, you check out the blogs. It's on there.
There's a cookie recipe that I came up with.
Yeah.
That's with bananas. So it's 100% sugar free and gluten free as well. So, and vegan. So it's really great. Nut free as well. So if you have a group of friends that is intolerant to anything, you are covered with this.
Perfect. So you can check it out. Maybe we can even share it here and find it. So great. So that was it. So maybe you want to share this video with your friends on your timeline or wherever you're watching it and you like it. And if you have any comments or if you have any questions, please do ask. Jessica can reply or I can reply. And maybe some last words for starting off as a vegan.
I would say that if you're not yet vegetarian, start off by vegetarian, because it really is difficult to quit cold turkey and go straight to vegan. So do vegetarian for a little while, get used to being able to replace meats, and then kind of slowly be able to eliminate milk products and eggs products.
Love that. Well done. Thank you so much.
Thank you for
having me. Thank you, guys. That was fun. Actually, I hope you enjoyed it, and see you next week. Bye-bye.